Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, a Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. Join host Josh Adair and Zach Rose as they dive into real stories from athletes, coaches, and leaders making an eternal impact through sports. Each episode brings powerful conversations on faith, leadership, and living boldly for Christ in every field of play and walk of life. This is Beyond the Huddle.
Welcome to Beyond the Huddle. So glad that you're here with us. And my name is Josh Adair, here with co-host Zach Rose and special guest. We've been trying to get on this podcast since the beginning. I guess it's been over a year now. And finally, schedules aligned and everything come into play. And we're finally able to have a dear friend of FCA ministry, former staff, and now a pastor and a great dad and husband. Robert Upshaw is here with us today. We're super excited to hear more of his story, learn some wisdom from him, and of things, mistakes he's made along the way that we can glean from, maybe how not to be repeat offenders, and how to maximize the gifts and abilities that God has given us for kingdom growth and expansion. So with that, Robert, welcome. We're glad that you're here. I would introduce Zach, let him say something, but he does that every time, and we don't have to do the same format every time. So, Robert, speak into the microphone and just tell us a little bit about yourself. Zach, what answers do we need from Robert?
Oh, so okay, now you want me to speak?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Bail me out.
Yeah. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, how long you lived in the Central Arkansas area, and how long you've been pastor on staff?
Okay, I've been here in Central Arkansas for about 34 years. Came here in lieu of a job with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I'd never been to Little Rock, and got here and found a place here and fell in love with Little Rock and Central Arkansas. And so I've been here about 34 years. I've been on staff at New Life Church for, at least in Maumelle, for about 2.5 years, and have really enjoyed my time there. Really honored to have that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Where did I go? There I am. Sorry. As you transition over to be a pastor, before that, there was a extended period of time where you served with FCA. How long were you on FCA staff here in Central Arkansas?
I was on staff for about 18 years and pretty much loved every minute of it. I always believed that, or at least I thought that one day I was going to be a professional athlete, and never did realize that God was going to use athletics as a platform to reach hundreds and thousands of students for the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all had professional dreams in here, and some of us closer than others. I was probably the least close to that based on my stature and physical abilities, but you're giving me a look like you're not 6'10" over here, Josh. But
Just because you have the height doesn't mean that you have aspirations to go past college.
that's fair.
You know,
That's fair. You didn't have aspirations to go past college?
no, I did
Never
not.
in your life?
Never in my life.
Okay.
I knew God's calling in my life was not to do that. More like Robert, to have an impact through sports, through basketball, to point people to Jesus. I knew that I did not need although sometimes I question this, I didn't need the money that pros have, because more money at the time, there's a song that said more money, more problems. And I did not need that in my life, because my crazy aunts and uncles were coming out of the woodwork like we see in the sports world today.
Yes.
Trying to get anything and nickel and diamond people for things that they were owed or things that they think that they were due. And I didn't need that. So actually, God told me it was not the path I was going to take.
Yeah. Hey. Everyone has their own thing.
That's right.
I'm still dreaming and believing. I'll go ahead and formally put my name into the 2026 NBA draft. So
I thought
just putting that out there.
I thought cornhole was your game.
Well, I've played in a few cornhole tournaments before,
there you go.
but this isn't about me. Would you mind maybe telling us some about your time with FCA? Number one, when did you feel called to that? What was the appeal to you at the beginning, and what kept you there for 18 years?
Well, I had never really thought about FCA. I'd been involved with FCA since I was a junior in high school and was familiar with the ministry, But in college, I played football and baseball there, and got a political science degree, and had some desires to go to law school. That's what I really wanted to do, and there's where God got a hold of my heart my senior year and began to show me that He had other plans for me, even though I was running as fast as I could. But you can't outrun God. And so when I surrendered to the ministry, an opportunity just dropped into my lap with Baptist Student Union at the University of Arkansas, and took a job there. And there's where I ran into Mark Henry. And Mark Henry was doing a ministry there, but he had also been talking about the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and they had it on that campus. And one evening they invited me to come speak. And after that encounter of speaking and being around those guys, T. Ray Grandstaff, who was the state director at the time, called and asked if I would have a meeting with him and talk about the vision they had for Little Rock with FCA, and then would I be interested in talking.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about vision and how that starts. Every vision starts with a small seed. I mean, similar to what we see in the biblical perspective of it, you have to build from the ground up. And you, having seen a lot of the growth in not just Central Arkansas, but throughout the state of Arkansas over the years, how has FCA grown from, and I know this is kind of a broad question, so feel free to go any which way with this, but how has FCA grown from the time that you stepped on staff to where it is now?
Well, you can see the difference with the amount of staff people that are here in Central Arkansas. When I got here, it was Mark Henry. And when I came on staff, it was me and Mark Henry. And so we covered a huge area. I mean, at one point, we were probably covering 72 schools by ourselves, and never knew that it would be the way that it is today to see the amount
when
of
you say
staff.
72 schools, we're talking campuses, or
We're talking campuses,
middle schools, high schools, junior highs,
we're
or
talking
cities,
high
or
schools, cities. I was in the Hot Springs area. We were in Pine Bluff. We were all over Little Rock, and areas that stretched outside of that. Clinton, Guy Perkins. We were everywhere in the state. And so you're talking about two people who were trying to figure all this out, because we were growing at a rapid rate. And there were so many needs, especially here in Little Rock. Around the time that I came on is when they had done the story on banging in Little Rock. HBO had come down here, and we had a lot of issues in the school at that time. We had a great deal of gang activity going on, and people were looking for hope and looking for answers and didn't know what direction to turn. And the mayor and a couple of lawyers that we had met with talked to us about really getting into the schools, and that's what we did. And we began to take the love of the Lord Jesus Christ out, and we began to see God do some miraculous things in people's lives. So.
Yeah. When you talk about covering such a large area of schools, what were some of the pursuits or structures that you used to try and, number one, get into the schools, and two, sustain ministry within the schools?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when you have two people, you have to have great balance. And what I would do is that I would say, this day, I'm going to hit my schools in Hot Springs. This day, I'm going to hit my Faulkner County schools. This day, I'm going to hit the high schools of Little Rock. And so I planned accordingly each day, or throughout that week. I would know which school I'm going to, which were my strong schools, which schools that I needed to pay more attention to, and which coaches was solid enough to keep FCA running without me having to be there to run them.
Yeah, we talk about this at times, but if the ministry is only functional because we're the one running and facilitating it day after day, that can cause some issues long term.
It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's really very difficult to try to be everywhere at once. Having your coaches train and them going through some kind of procedure to equip themselves to run the huddle, because really that coach is going to be the one that's going to influence those kids. So if you could get the coach going in the right direction, then you had hope to where you could go to some of the weaker schools and really run those and help that coach get him or her confident enough to run that huddle to where you didn't have to be there all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I know Josh can speak on this a little bit because his word for the year is delegate. And as I've been reading through even just this last weekend being Easter weekend and thinking through the life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus, but also the aftermath of that, and how the whole book of Acts is about the individuals that he trained up to then go out and do and spread and multiply. That's a biblical principle. That's how we're called to live out and do discipleship and train up people as well. And I know we've seen that even here in Central Arkansas recently of the delegation process of trusting. I think that's the hard part sometimes is I know for me at times my pride has gotten the best of me to say, well, I know that I can do the job.
Yes.
I know that I can get this done and execute it the way that I feel is best in this situation. And it'll be high level because, of course, I'm doing it.
Yes.
And it's all I, when really trusting the Lord to say, you know what, this is, we just talked about a second ago, teamwork is a core value of FCA. If we can't work together in teams, if we can't pursue this ministry in teams, then we're not going to be successful in our pursuit of every coach and every athlete. So
there's no doubt about that. I would have loved to have had a team of people. All the years that I served at FCA, I think there was 2 staff people and maybe an administrative person. And just trying to keep that up and afloat was very difficult. But God's hand has always been in the midst of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He doesn't need men to run it. He just needs to have men that have available hearts to do it. And that's what we had at the time when we were on staff. We didn't worry about, we always believed that there would be more staff. Did I think I would see it in my lifetime? I'm not sure. But we were equipped enough to say, we're going to do as much as we can, as well as we can until.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Josh,
I want to go back. You glanced over some things in your history, just to fuller. My words are hard for me today, and we're doing a podcast. This is not a great scenario. So if you're listening and you're watching, I apologize. I'm sorry. It happens to the best of us. As much as you have a plan, sometimes it just your brain doesn't work. Maybe I'm getting older. I don't know. Every day is a day closer to death. I hate to tell you.
Oh boy, wow. We are going down real quick.
That's the truth. That's just where we are. And what you see with me is what you get. I'm sorry if you haven't figured it out by now. But did you say where you went to high school?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So high school to college, where along the way did you understand Jesus, understand your need for Jesus? Because what most people may or may not know, this past year, we had Robert come speak at our Fields of Faith. Robert is a gifted evangelist. He understands Scripture as a way to communicate it clearly for people to understand without any knowledge of who Jesus is and their need for him. So where did that start for you? Who was the pastor? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I was sharing with my senior boys in my discipleship group at church. A lot of times we don't act on the faith that we have because we don't know our identity in Jesus, or 2, we don't know our identity in the family as to who led them to the Lord and who led them to the Lord. Like if we could trace back our spiritual lineage, who introduced Jesus to my parents was my grandparents, and who introduced it to Pop was a pastor at a church at a revival. But who is that pastor? I don't know. Yeah. But if we knew that, like we see in the Bible, we see genealogies where they could point back to this person and this person and this person, but we don't do that well. So who would that be for you? Who introduced Jesus to you, and how did that shape your life and your direction? You get to college and you surrender to ministry. What did that look like? How did we get here?
Well, it's no doubt that it was my sister Laurieann. Laurieann would come home from college and she would bring games home, and she would ask us if we wanted to play, and we'd all be excited about the new game, and it would always be something biblical. It would always be something that was drawing us near the Lord. And it got to the point to where we hated when Laurieann would come home because we knew that she was going to have something biblical to share with us. But there was many of days that she prayed over us and for us. And I just loved the way she lived her life. I admired her, and she inspired me as I got older. And when I got into high school, and somewhat in junior high, there was a young man named Mitchell Wagner. Mitchell Wagner was a guy that I used to beat up when we were 3. We were in preschool together, and in junior high, we started playing football together, and we became really good friends because he was a lineman and I was a running back. And Mitchell, I would see him often with his Bible before the games and studying and things of that nature. And I really wanted what Mitchell had, even though I had accepted Christ when I was in the 3rd grade. As far as growth in my life, there wasn't a lot of it, but Mitchell set great examples for me. And I wanted what he had. And he got me back into church. I was going to church, and then he finally got me back in Sunday school. And it just so happens that Mark Passmore, youth guy, came into town from San Antonio, or maybe he was from San Marcos, and took over the youth program. And that really changed my life. He would come pick us up. He'd take us to go play racquetball. Him and Sharon would bring us over to their house. We'd do Bible study. We'd watch movies together. But he was constantly pouring into me. My other mentor was Mr. Summy, who believed in me as a youngster. How I started speaking was through Mr. Summy. Mr. Summy put me in Tag Plus in the 6th grade. And that was for talent and gifted students, and I had neither one of them. But he saw leadership in me. He saw that I was leading kids astray, and he put me in Tag Plus against all the wishes of all the other teachers. And that changed me, because when I became a freshman in high school, I moved up to the varsity football team when the starting running back got hurt. And he asked me if I would come talk to the 6th grade class, since I was on varsity football as a freshman. And that was the first time that I'd ever spoken publicly.
Wow.
And I believe that God was already starting to do some things for me right then and there. When I got into college.
So,
right.
So it wasn't just one person.
Oh no, there's a
community
group of people that poured into me that
it's amazing. It's amazing sitting here
for.
watching you. We're asking these questions and there's no papers or notes, and your eyes are coming to life with the memories of these people who've invested heavily in you. So everybody who's listening, this is to you. Be aware of who's in front of you, who needs, if you're a believer in Jesus and you're further down the road than the next generation, they need you. They need you to see good in them, to speak life into them, speak vision that they don't even see possible, because we have a living proof example here in the room who's agreeing with me right now. That someone spoke life and give them a challenge to rise up to a higher level, a higher standard of, and get them plugged in sometimes. And it was a peer, as you heard, of a football player who was there with him, who led by example, and he lived it in front of him. So if you're a student listening to this, who are you? Had a youth pastor the other day, which is a crazy story, former youth pastor, because this is the new trend of 2 numbers together that come after 5 that I'll let y'all figure out. They years ago in their student ministry, they were challenged to be the number book of the Bible, because there's 66 books in the Bible. So they were challenged to be that, I'll just say it, the 67th book. So so much so that they and their group, they challenge each other every day. Are you the 67th? Are you the 67th? Yeah. We're 66 books here. How are you the 67th today? I mean, so much so that they got tattoos, and now he has a 6'7" tattoo that he tries to hide from the middle schoolers where he's a counselor at.
That's funny.
It is funny. All full circle. I just outed him. I didn't use his name. So if you're listening, you know who you are. I love you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have mentioned you on the podcast. So, but there's people around that influence us to Jesus.
Oh yeah.
That put us in the position to where we make the personal decision to follow after him. So you still haven't said, where'd you go to high school?
I went to Blanco, Texas. It was a small town. We had 37 in my graduation class.
West Texas.
Nope, Central Texas. It's right between San Antonio and Austin in Hill Country, right off 281. One stop light.
Okay, hold on. Do you know what Blanco means in Spanish?
Blanco, you mean white?
Sí.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sí.
Muy bien.
Okay.
Muy bien.
Yeah.
Blanco is not a Hispanic word. It was an Indian word. But
okay.
Apologies.
I was going to say Blanco is not Blanco, but anyways, yeah.
It is if you're
I could have been wrong.
from
I
Texas.
hope that I didn't mess it up, Blanco people.
Oh man.
So how did you end up from Blanco, Texas to Arkansas Tech?
Southern Arkansas.
Oh, SAU.
SAU, yes. I got a scholarship to come play football at SAU, and of course it was 11 hours from home, and Texas State looked at me at the time also right out of high school to play football, and I just felt like it was too close to home. It was too close to my buddies, and I really wanted an opportunity to grow and see something else in life besides what I had seen most of my life. And so I got the scholarship and came here and played football at SAU for 4 years, played 2 years of baseball.
What years were you at SAU?
88 to 92.
Okay.
And loved every minute of it. There is where I began to realize what God had on my life and what he wanted to do with my life. Made good friends. Also became a witness there with my teammates. And my teammates thought that I was a nerd. I had big glasses on like Urkel, and I was really quiet. I stayed in my room. I didn't go to parties. I didn't hang out. So most people didn't even think that I played football. But it was a starting point for me to start witnessing to my teammates. And at times they were very embarrassed to come to me, so they'd come to me late at night and just try to get some godly advice. And the great thing about SAU is that I learned years later there was quite a few people listening, that I would get a text or a call or an email saying, thank you for living out Christ in front of me. I have accepted the Lord and have led my family to the Lord as well.
Wow.
And they just thanked me for being who I was. And it's not easy being a believer on the college campus. It seems easier today because there's a movement in the college ranks. But back then, there wasn't a lot of kids going to church, and I found myself being one of maybe 68 players going to church, and it could be very lonely. But I knew that God had me there, and I knew that He wanted me to live a life that exemplified Him. And because of that, not to say that I didn't make mistakes and do crazy things while I was in college, but because that He had His hand on me, several of my teammates came to know the Lord.
Wow. That speaks so much to the totality of how the Lord works, I think, through our lives. Of number one, I want to hit on multiple people speaking into your life at a young age, because in ministry, I think sometimes we can get this idea or perspective that what we start, we have to see through, or what we start, we have to finish until completion. And I've had people come talk to me in transition times or periods where the Lord was obviously calling them something different. I'm sure you may have had a similar experience of serving with FCA for so long and then stepping away from it, now still being a part of it, but not being in the same capacity. You go from, okay, Lord, I trust you with what not I have built, but with you, with what you have built, and that you'll continue to see it through until completion. That's so hard sometimes.
It's very hard. It was very difficult for me because I'd been part of parachurch most of my career in ministry. And really, in all honesty, I really didn't want to be a part of a church staff. I knew what would go on church staffs, the cliques, the trying to get close to the pastors, and all of the stuff just turned me off from it. And I almost told the Lord, I never want to be on a church staff. I just don't want to do it. I love parachurch ministry, to where you can freely go. You can go in and out of other churches and not have to worry about what they believe and what you believe. And it was just so convenient to be able to go in the Pentecostal church or go into Assembly of God church or go into a First Baptist church and not worry about all the other stuff. And now that I'm on staff, which I'm very thankful to be on staff, I love what I get to do. There is where you find just as many hurting people as you do out in the schools or out in the world. And I get to work with young men there at the church. I get to work with marriages, which I am really 100% all in for. And I have got the privilege of watching some lives being changed. So although I fought against the church life, it has been very beneficial for me and my wife to serve in the church capacity.
Absolutely. Again, a refining piece of that too is chipping away I think the theme of this conversation so far is removing pride and removing ourselves from the equation to allow the Lord to work through our circumstances. And I know you agree with that and have seen that through. So as you leave college and step into the reality of the real world, number one, what were you studying at SAU? What was the focus of study, and how did the Lord shift your perspective from what you maybe thought you were going to do to what you have actually done over the course of your life so far?
Yeah, I absolutely believed that I was going to go to law school. I majored in political science. That was the closest thing we had to law at Southern Arkansas at the time, and loved it. Loved the idea of helping. I wanted to be a cop, and my dad just kind of talked me out of that. And just, no, Robert, that's not something I really think you ought to pursue. But while I was there trying to figure out everything, one of my friends, Kim Shabata, was very involved with the Baptist Student Union. That's what it was called then. And she would invite, and I would say no. And then finally gave in and started going to it. And Robert Pinkston, who was the Baptist Student Union leader at that time, got me involved. One of the first things that he did was got me in front of people to speak, because I was on the football team and on the baseball team, and he put me in front of people to start talking about faith. So you had to do some studying. But one of the other things that he did while I was there is that we would have to go out into the community and do activities with the churches that were supporting our ministry at the Baptist Student Union. And we would have people that would go and they would do the skits. There were people who would do the music, and there would be people doing some other stuff, but they never had anybody to preach and do the devotion. And so every time Pastor Pinkston would say, Robert, you're going to be the one to do that. And it started. And so I would go and I would do the speaking, and everyone would ask me after it was over, are you going to be a preacher? I'm like, no, I'm going to go to law school. I want nothing to do with ministry. No, thank you. And before I knew it, as God began to chase me, his word began to chase me, I surrendered into the ministry and did not know what he was going to do with me in that. But in the 34 years that I've served in ministry, I have been able to witness thousands and thousands of people who come to know the Lord. And so God knows what he's doing when he's tugging at your heart. And it is a calling. Yeah. You have to know that God has called you out of something into something. And you have to know that his handprint is on it and in it. Because when we step out and tell people what we're going to do and how we're going to go about doing it, if God's hand is not on it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just not going to. And I have been thankful for the doors that he has opened up for me and the opportunities that he has put in front of me over the years. And that's only through him and his grace. And that was through me finally surrendering and being obedient to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. That's so good. I think a lot of our students need to hear that too. And I know we'll dive into this a little bit here, but the next generation can be so distracted and so removed from reality and what the Lord's trying to speak to them. And we talk about it on here often, of how pain is almost a common denominator. I think pain can wake some people up sometimes because at some point you can avoid pain as long as you want to, but it's still going to hurt at the end of the day.
Yes.
And it's still going to chase you down the hallway when you're trying to run from it. But was there a moment in time where you felt that the Lord used a season of pain or a disappointing performance or whatever that may be to further your perspective and give you some more opportunities to then speak into the lives of people around you?
I'm going to interject here. We're going to get to that question, but I need to ask a question too. Did you know that you're in the UIL record books?
Yes.
Oh. University Interscholastically for the state of Texas. Do you know what for?
Baseball
During 1988.
State
playoffs. He had a we're going to answer that question with this.
This is scary what you can find on.
I know. I just found it. Like I've been checked out trying to figure out, all right, what's going on here? I need to do this more before we get on here. So throughout the playoffs in 1988, he had a batting average of .571. 7 at-bats, 1 run, 4 hits, and 2 RBIs. So if you were so good at baseball, why'd you go play football?
That's a great question, and this is part of the testimony that you're asking about. My junior year, I had a huge batting average in baseball. So good that my senior year, sitting in Spanish class with football season getting ready to end, my coach came in and talked to me. He said that the Atlanta Braves are going to come watch you play this year. And just crazy out of my mind about that. And so we got through football season and we went into basketball season, and we started out hot in basketball, but unfortunately we lost the conference game. A district game is what we call it in Texas, and which put us in second place and made us play the first round against San Antonio Cole. And San Antonio Cole at the time had Shaquille O'Neal on that basketball team.
Oh, wow.
And I remember stealing the ball early in that game and going to put up a layup, and he slapped it off the backboard, and I realized we were going to be in for a long night. But another thing happened that night also. I went for a steal in that game, and something happened to my hand, and went to the sideline, told coach that I was in pain, and he just taped it up and sent me back out there. And I had 16 points in that game. We held Shaquille to 11 points. He fell out in the third quarter, and they still beat us by 25. That's how good that team was. Well, the next day I have to go to our physician in San Marcos to have my hand looked at. Now basketball season's over, baseball season's getting ready to start. And the doctor talks to my dad first, and then he talks to me and he says, "Robert, I'm sorry to inform you, but your hand is broke." And in fact, it was right through there. And he said, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before that hand heals, and it'll probably be another 2 weeks before you put a bat in your hand. And so all the dreams and all the hard work, all the long summers in the hot heat, all the training, all the dreams of being a professional athlete cracked right then and there, and didn't come back until we got to district in baseball. Ended up with a 420 average that year, I think, regular season. And no one came to watch me play. I accomplished all those things at the state playoffs, but baseball and those dreams were over. And it was a moment in my life to where God really said, who are you going to serve? Because in every article that you were in this year, every interview that you did on TV, all the things where you were praised, not one time did you ever honor me. Not one time that you give me any glory. You thank your classmates, your teammates, your parents, you did all that stuff, but not one time that you ever honor me. And I really, truly believe that my hand was broken in order to get my attention, to draw me back to him.
Wow.
So that's why baseball and football.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there. Number one, what grade was Shaquille O'Neal in when?
Shaquille O'Neal was a junior at that time.
Gotcha.
And my brother had to play him twice the following year.
Out of that whole story, that's the only question.
Well, that was my first question. That's my first
burning
question. Shaquille O'Neal, is he in the Hall of Fame yet? If he's not, he will be.
That's the first burning question, really.
I was thinking of the movie Blue Chips.
Yeah,
is what I was thinking of, and all I could think of was like, was Robert in Blue Chips?
No, Robert was not in Blue Chips. I can promise you.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm sorry. Oh man.
Wow. That's good.
Wow. Man, what a lesson to learn at a young age, I'm sure. And a very large challenge, I'm sure, to overcome of oftentimes we can get so revolved around our own perception and what we can do that we forget about who was the one who orchestrated and gave us the ability to do it in the first place. We've been kind of reading through the Spiritual Game Plan book, and I've started reading through it recently, and just talking about how, number one, how God created sport, how sport is an opportunity to be creative and allow the Lord, similar to what we would do with, in the symbols of God, fine arts is a huge thing, using gifts and abilities to glorify God. But even further than that, just musically, there's other art forms too. and it talks about how a step back jumper, when that was created, that's a form of art. It is.
Amen.
Because it's a different way. When James Naismith created basketball, I don't think they were hitting step back jumpers back then, right?
That was the funniest bit of the whole Final Four. They had an actor that played James Naismith, and he came in and they did a Naismith or a no Smith. Like, is this a Naismith thing or a no Smith? Like the original rules.
Yeah.
And then since they were in Indianapolis,
So good.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Things have changed a lot since he
big
first
time.
created
Yeah.
it.
We don't have to get the ball out of a basket anymore.
Yeah,
It falls
correct.
through a net.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
Oh man, Shaquille O'Neal would break a lot of baskets. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
He was not known for finesse,
No.
No.
He was
especially at
not.
the free throw line.
No,
No.
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Oh man. So as you navigate through that pain and walk through that season, I'll go ahead and just fast forward a little bit to, again, ministry with FCA, and want to talk through how you use that pain, how you speak clearly about some of that and what you've experienced to the next generation. What's the importance for you, excuse me, to share what you've learned with the next generation? Because currently you're involved with North Little Rock High School football team. Are you involved anywhere else? I don't.
Oh yes, I'm Southwest.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was other things that you are doing with FCA, but as you go and speak to those young men, and as you continue to use your role as a pastor in your church and in this community, what's the importance of what God has done in your life and why you need to share that with other people?
It's important to know that God does certain things in our life, and He doesn't have to give us an explanation for it. Sometimes those things are to test us. Sometimes those things are to refine us. Sometimes those things are meant to mold us more into His image. Sometimes it's just to help us understand that with Him we can do a lot of things, but apart from Him we can do absolutely nothing. Those lessons are meant to make you more like Christ. And I think pain does that. I think we realize that we can't handle certain things on our own, that pain draws us to something that's bigger than us and helps us understand that pain is helping refine you and molding you in His image. But He's the one that's going to get glory from it when you come out of that. Yeah. When you're in it, He's saying, I'm here with you. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. But this pain also will remind you that when you step outside of my boundaries, there's a way of me correcting you and humbling you and bringing you back in. Although baseball was painful in the breaking of my hand, there was nothing more painful than going through the death of my wife. And that was a whole different pain of where God teaches you things to help you understand and equip you to be much better than what you ever thought that you could be. Yeah. And watching Him walk you through something that you never thought that you would have to experience. So it's important that young people understand that we shouldn't always ask God to take the pain away right away. There's something that He's trying to teach you. Ask Him to take you through it. And once you get to the other side, you finally get to see why you had to go through this.
Wow. Wow. You saying that and speaking that, was it last week we talked about podcasts for people to listen to? Zach
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Zach got to share some. One that I listen to pretty frequently is just went blank. I have to look it up.
2 weeks to prepare, and here we are.
Oh, failure.
How's that?
So glad that we can encourage one another and speak.
Sometimes there's other people in your life that humble you too. And I get humbled often by Josh, so I have to return the favor.
Return the favor that we didn't ask for. So
That's
good.
right. That's right.
It's the Nothing is Wasted podcast, and how nothing is wasted in life, and it's a lot of stories of tragedy and trauma and death or unexpected deaths, of how God refines us in those moments, what God teaches us. Davey Blackburn tells a story, and he's a podcast host. If you're looking like you don't know how to get out of the middle of tell people that similar to what Robert says, we're in 3 seasons of life. We're either preparing for a storm, we're in a storm or we're coming out of a storm.
Mm-hmm.
So all three, we have to be in preparation and anticipation of and walking in relationship with Jesus to get us through those things. Because if not, we're on our own and we're wondering why God doesn't hear our prayers, and our prayers only get us so far as a ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Davey went out. He's planning a church, and he went out for a run, and someone broke into his house and killed his wife while he was out on a run before church on Sunday morning. Wow. And he uses that platform to talk about other people through loss and all that Robert here is sharing. So it's just another resource, another podcast that is there for you to listen to find hope in, and to help navigate if you're walking through something similar, or you have and you don't know what to do with it. Just a great way to listen to find out that you're not alone, and that there's other people who can sympathize with and empathize, and give you next steps and action points, and help you to see what God has taught you for this next storm that he may be preparing you to go through, or that someone else is walking through with you. So, yeah, I can't even imagine, Robert, walking through a loss of a spouse, and then not stopping, and kids in the mix, and I don't even know how to fathom or how to process that.
God is faithful.
Yeah,
that's really the bottom line. We don't always know what we're going to face in this life, but we don't ever have to face it alone. And so I had to learn that, and did learn it. And then, God is so gracious that he blessed me with another wonderful wife, and someone to help me finish raising the kids. And I was very grateful for that. But pain is necessary in this life. It's part of life. It's part of the curse. And whether we want it or not, it's there and it's coming.
Yeah.
We just got to know who we can turn to in the midst of it.
Yeah. I feel like so many people, coaches, athletes, teachers, parents, self-medicate to escape it. And as we see addictions all over, addictions of everything. It's all, I think it can boil down to how we deal with pain.
Yeah.
And whether it's vocalized or not vocalized, you see something wrong with somebody, you figure out what's going on. Most of the time it has to do with some sort of pain. So thankful that we have the hope of Jesus, and that he's not in a grave, and he's alive and well, and victory of heaven, and hope of heaven, and that we could put our focus on and work towards. And I think a lot of times we forget that Easter was last weekend, 2,000 years ago, that we still have the opportunity to celebrate.
Yes.
My my kindergartner asked, Dad, wouldn't it be crazy? She said, Jesus was 33 years old. Wouldn't it be crazy if we celebrated Christmas once every 33 years and then Easter 33 years after that? I'm like, do what? I was like, run it by me one more time. She said, what if we just celebrated every 33 years, Jesus was born, and then we wait 33 years and we celebrate his death? I was like, well, there'd be a lot of people who would miss out on the opportunity for heaven. We wouldn't know how to. A lot of hope missed out on. She was like, I'm so glad we don't have to do that. It was just a thought that went through my head. I was like, big thoughts by kindergartners. What do we do? Like, thank you for church for investing in my daughter to teach them the stories, but it came right out of kids' time at Fellowship Bible Church. And I was like, whoa, was not prepared for that. She's like, okay, can we go hunt eggs now? I'm like, sure, baby. Yeah, we can go hunt eggs.
That's incredible. Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. You hit on answering, I think, one of the hardest questions I've seen that there is to answer when talking to someone who's skeptical or lacks faith. And it's, why does God allow bad things to happen? And why do bad things continue to happen? Why do natural disasters happen? Why do losses of loved ones happen? Why is there so much pain and brokenness in the world? And I think you summarized that up well to say it's a part of the curse. It's a part of the brokenness of the beginning of creation. And it also is a continued story of God's grace and mercy and love for us too.
It is.
And I think we forget that sometimes when we see the brokenness and we see the hurt and the pain. I can't imagine, like Josh was saying, experiencing something and a loss that great. But I have seen and experienced some of the Lord's grace and love. And I think that goes to show not only just the idea of it, but the expanding overflow of God's goodness and grace. Because we could never know the limit. There is no limit.
There's no limit
of God's goodness and grace in our lives. And I just think you summarized that well. I think that's something that we often forget when we're going through a difficult season or a difficult period is, man, if I could even just fathom a small portion of the love that God has for me, I would completely remove any blame of this pain on his shoulders. And I just think we get so closed-minded. To speak on that even more so recently with this whole Artemis 2 and the spaceship that's going up and going around the moon, I've been so intrigued by how people have reacted to this. Of we don't just go to space every other week. That's not something that happens so often, but the humans on the spaceship, number one, using that as a platform to share about God and the beauty of his creation. But when I look at some of these pictures, number one, a picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. Those pictures are worth far more than 1,000 words. The beauty of God's creation is incredible. When we think about how we're sitting here on planet Earth, I forget that sometimes we're just sitting here on planet Earth and that the expanse is so much wider and further than we could ever know. And that's the same with God's love for us too.
It is.
When we look at the universe and the expansion of the cosmos, and I'm no astronomist or even have any inkling of an idea. I barely even can see the Big Dipper when I look up into the sky at night. But
you have to get out of the city.
Correct. Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to. Yeah. It's a lot easier to see when it's not even.
It is a lot easier to see.
Where are all the stars tonight? Yeah. Oh man, that's good. Thank you for that tip.
Or you can go to Texas.
Yeah.
Because the stars at night are big and bright.
Always.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Deep in the heart of Texas. So.
Always.
Yes. Yes, and amen. Man.
We got to teach these Illinois boys some things every once
Hey,
in a while.
we got cornfields and countrysides out there too.
Amen.
I've seen some stars. So
There we go. Sorry.
all that to summarize up. I'm so encouraged by your story, and not just by your story, but God's story through you.
It's God's story.
And
There's no doubt about it.
That's something that I often forget. I'm sure that's something that we can all often forget of how he moves and operates through us. So we're supposed to be called to be a vessel to be used by God rather than the one who's facilitating and operating on a larger scale. So I'm just encouraged by that today. And I know we're probably running short on time here, but we got about 5 minutes left. I did want to ask you just one more question as we close here. Is there one story of impact? You talked about having seen a lot of people be transformed by the renewing of their mind and their heart and their soul through Jesus. Is there one story that you can maybe share just briefly before we end here of transformation that you've seen through FCA and the ministry of FCA?
Oh, man. I think about my own life, first of all, because if Mark Passmore wouldn't have started FCA at our school, I would have never been introduced to FCA. And when I think about the experiences of FCA and how it impacted my life as far as it drawing me closer to the Lord, and then realizing later in life that, you know, I might actually be able to influence people. And then to know that God opened up a door for me to do it for 18 years through a ministry called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It impresses me that God knows what to do there. Trying to think of an athlete or someone that it really changed and impact. I know there were so many kids that were touched by it. Johnny Rice, who works here on the staff, he was one of the first guys that I introduced FCA to at Ridge Road. Yeah. Way back in the 90s, I believe it was. And he was just a former basketball player, I think from OBU. and probably really wasn't looking to mess with FCA at all, and went into their school, and him and I hit it off, and we got FCA up and going, and now he is on staff for FCA.
Yeah.
So I see moments like that makes me be thankful that the ministry of FCA has impacted so many lives and has changed so many lives. My own kids were involved in FCA. So it's impacted their lives. I'm just thankful for this ministry. I don't know what my life would be like without FCA. I know that I will probably never be in another ministry that had so much impact on lives being changed in one setting, the way that this ministry has affected lives.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so thankful for you. I remember coming on staff in 2021 and not knowing much about anything. And Mark Miller was like, you need to talk to Robert Upshaw. So we did. And we had you out for our first Fields of Faith in Cabot,
Yes.
which was a grand party trying to figure out how all that looked and worked. And had you back out for Fields of Faith this past year. Fields of Faith happens in the fall on public school campuses as a way for the community to come together to celebrate Jesus through the influence of coaches and athletes on the football field underneath the big lights to tell the world about Jesus. And I just want to tell you thank you for your faithfulness year after year, for all that you have done. Just in Cabot, Stuttgart, at Sylvan Hills this past year, just as a highlight, thankful for your influence being a part. There's over 5,000 attended across 3 schools, 209 putting first-time decisions to follow Jesus, and 384 others who made decisions to grow in their faith. And thank you for allowing the Holy Spirit to move through you, to be in the mouthpiece, to point people to Jesus, and all those were followed up with local churches.
Love it.
Thank you for your ministry. Thanks for the start. And it's all upon your shoulders that we stand. And thankful to call you a brother. And
likewise.
And, looking forward for many more years of ministry together. So Absolutely. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us this week on Beyond the Huddle, Central Arkansas FCA podcast, where faith meets competition. Y'all have a great week.